Okay, so this question's got some graph information. It's asking us to think about conversions between gallons and litres. It's given us information about the size of a tank, and it's telling us it's in the shape of a cylinder. So we should be recognising that's key information. Then we're talking about a prism, and it's telling us that the oil tank contains 200 gallons of oil. So that's important. It's already got 200 gallons of oil within it. The question itself says, is the oil tank more or less than half full? It's a start question, so they're asking us to do lots of explanations. So the first thing we've got to think about is, well, what's the size of the tank? And therefore we've got to think about working out the volume of this prism. So we've got a cylinder and it's about a prism, and from the front of our formula book it tells us that the volume is equal to the cross section. Well, the cross section of this cylinder is a circle, so it's pi r squared, and then the formula at the front of the booklet tells us to multiply by the length of the prism, and the length of this case, in the cylinder case we tend to call it the height of it, but it's the length of it, and that comes from say the formula at the front of the exam booklet. The volume of a prism is equal to the area of cross section times the length. So in this particular example then we've got pi times the radius of 60 times the length of the cylinder of 180. So we've got pi times 60 squared times 180. So that equals 2035752.04. And again, we've got to think about units. Always think about what the units of answers are. So these were centimetres being multiplied, square centimetres from that, and then times by another centimetre would make centimetres cubed, or cubic centimetres. It's three-dimensional, it's volume, so therefore we're talking about that. Now that's great. We know how big the tank is in cubic centimetres. The question says, is the tank more or less than half full? So the first thing we've got to do then is halve this answer to find out what a half looks like. So we left the answer in the calculator to make the sum quick and easy. So the half of the tank is equal to 1017876.02 cubic centimetres. Again, you notice here I'm not rounding any of the answers. I'm leaving in the full answers because I haven't got to the end of the question yet. So personally I advise you never round answers until you get to the end. So we know that half the tank had that volume, but what we can see here is the oil tank contains 200 gallons of oil. So we've got to work out what 200 gallons is cubic centimetres. Hence the reason they've given us this nice little conversion table to remind us that there's a relationship between gallons and litres. But we've worked out how many cubic centimetres we have. So of course we've got to realise that we need to convert cubic centimetres into litres. So we should remember that 1 litre is equal to 1,000 cubic centimetres. So basically half the tank is going to be the answer we had, so 1017876.02, and that's in cubic centimetres, so we're going to divide that by 1,000, so that gives us 1017.87602 litres. Now again, they've told us it's 200 gallons, so we've got to work out the relationship between litres and gallons. So basically we can see here that if we take the widest point of the graph, then it tends to be the more accurate. So when we look here, we can see that 10 gallons is the same as 45 litres. So 10 gallons equals 45 litres. So 1 gallon is going to equal 4.5 litres. Now this question was generous in a sense that it gave you that information, but we really ought to learn that 1 gallon is about 4.5 litres as a fact, because they won't always be generous and give you something that you could work it out from. So we now need to use that conversion that 1 gallon is 4.5 litres. So we're going to work out the number of gallons, and that means we take this number and we divide that by 4.5. So we left that number in our calculator to make this sum quick and easy. So divide that by 4.5, so 226.195 gallons. So we know then that the oil tank contains 200 gallons of oil, and half a tank is 226.195 gallons, because that's what we worked out, that half a tank is that. So it's actually going to be half, less than half. So basically, is the oil tank more or less than half full? Then we're going to say it's less than half full. And basically we're going to finish up by concluding that 200 is less than 226.195. And that's because we've shown all our workings somewhere in the question, and we've written down the reason for the start answer, that it's less than half full, because then we'll get full marks for that question. The question goes on and it talks about the fact that the oil has a density of 0.85 grams per cubic centimetre. Work out in kilograms the mass of the oil. Well, we worked out that the question says the oil tank contains 200 gallons of oil. So we've got 200 gallons of oil, and we worked out that 1 gallon is equal to 4.5 litres, and we worked out that in each litre there is 1,000 cubic centimetres. So we times that by 1,000, so 1 gallon is the same as 4,500 cubic centimetres. There are 200 gallons of oil in the tank, so we have to do the 200 times the 4,500 to work out how many cubic centimetres that is. So 200 times 4,500, so we've got 900,000 cubic centimetres of oil. And they're telling us in the question that each cubic centimetre is 0.85 grams. So the mass of oil is going to be 900,000 times 0.85. So times by 0.85. So we've got 765,000. And it's really important we recognise the units of this is grams. So this will be grams, but the question, again, we go through and identify key information, and when we look at here, it says it wants the answer in kilograms. So we've got to remember that 1 kilogram is the same as 1,000 grams. So we finish off by doing the mass of the oil in grams, divide by 1,000, so that's going to give us an answer of 765 kilograms. So the mass of the oil is 755 kilograms. So that's how that question could be tackled. Lots of conversions to do, lots of things to remember. So again, it's about learning facts, guys. That 1 litre is 1,000 cubic centimetres. 1 gallon is 4.5 litres. Learn those facts, then questions like this become reasonably straightforward using a calculator.